Welcome to another interesting edition of the program Issues of the Moment. Issues of the Moment is a current affairs program of Living TV Aba. And today we are going to talk about a very important subject, a topical one that has dominated discussions in Nigeria, Africa's most popular democracy, and that electronic transmission of election results. What are the implications for 2023 election? In his last book entitled There Was a Country, the master storyteller Chinua Achebe revealed how some British officials aided the rigging of the 1959 general elections, the first in the country in favor of a section of Nigeria. That unholy act by Britain, a country that should have laid a solid foundation for the practice of constitutional democracy in the young nation, might have opened the floodgate of electoral malpractices. Electoral malpractices, which include snatching of ballot boxes, falsification of election results, vote buying, among others, have almost become permanent feature of Nigeria election. Most Nigerian politicians are like the proverbial and naked bird in Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. While INEC is working seriously to check electoral malpractices, political office holders are also working around the clock to devise new means of cheating in elections. Though there cannot be perfect election, however, most Nigerians are of the view that the antidote to electoral malpractices is electronic voting and electronic transmission of election results. While considering the Electoral Act 2010 Amendment Bill, the Senate last Thursday voted against the electronic transmission of election results. Senate President Ahmed Lawal in a statement said, and I quote, INEC may consider electronic transmission of election results provided the national coverage is adjudged to be adequate and secure by the Nigerian Communications Commission, NCC, and approved by the National Assembly, end of quote. What are the implications of this decision by the National Assembly on 2023 general elections? And this morning we are privileged to have in our studio two gentlemen who are going to do justice to this important subject. Sitting close to me is Mr. Charles Akwete. Mr. Akwete is a legal practitioner. I also have in the studio a former state lawmaker who is at present the Abia State Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, PDP, Right Honorable Asiforo Okere. Gentlemen, thanks for coming to the program.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, let me start with you. You had the background information concerning the subject we are discussing this morning. And let me ask, what is your take on that decision by the National Assembly?
Thank you, Moderator. The National Assembly, especially the leadership of the Ninth House, has just caught the expectation of the majority of the Nigerians. And if they don't reverse their decision, they will go down in history as the worst leadership that National Assembly has ever produced. Because this is the subject matter that has dominated the political scene for the past 4 years, and every Nigerian has been expecting for the passage of this bill, and there is no other way they could have deepened the democracy we are talking about, apart from strengthening the electoral process. And come to think about it, what is the issue? Just to transmit result electronically. And what does it mean to transmit the result electronically? As you're recording it, you're sending it to the collation center. So what is the difficulty in that? And this is what every other sector is doing. The same people that did not pass this bill, they stay in their house, send text messages, send chat to people, and the information is gotten over there. They stay in their houses, make transfers to people, and they get it. I went to hospital one day, and the doctor took the receptionist took my particulars and all my data and all that. By the time I entered the doctor's office, as he opened the screen, he said, "You're born so time, you've done this, you have done this." And I was looking at him. He said, "Don't worry, that the information they took there, they have sent it to me." And it has gone viral in their system. So what is the difficulty? I mean, I'm disappointed just like every Nigerian. And this APC government, it has been seen that they are anti-people, they are anti-development. And when you're talking about development, you're talking about technology. And if you think you will not, move with the society, with the trend, then you're going backwards. You can see all they're thinking about. What they're thinking about is open grazing at this jet age, that people are thinking of how to develop, how to improve. So I'm very disappointed, just like every other Nigerian.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Kwete, are you on the same page with Mr. Chairman?
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. The outcome of the votes at the National Assembly regarding the transition of votes is saying the least, very disappointing to the majority of Nigerians. Nigerians had looked forward to a vibrant democracy that will be devoid of electoral rigging, electoral manipulation, vote snatching, result falsification, and all that. And we had anchored our hopes on the ability of the National Assembly, who are supposed to be our representatives, to ensure that the bill passes through without glitches. The idea of subjecting and the ability of INEC to carry out their constitutional mandate subject to the approval of the National Assembly and the approval or ratification of the NCC is, to say the least, an interference to the independence of the INEC. By law, INEC is an independent statutory body which owes nobody no approval for it to do or carry out its constitutional duties. But subjecting it this time around, as the National Assembly said, that they can only carry out electronic transmission of votes subject to NCC as approval and the National Assembly approval, means that INEC is now working under the dictates of the NCC and National Assembly. And this could have been the intendment of the legislatures when they made INEC independent in carrying out its duties. And that is going to affect the outcome of the 2023 election negatively, because INEC in itself, stooping too low to seek the approval of the National Assembly and the NCC before it transmits results electronically, means that manipulations, interferences, and that's what are going to be the order of the day.
Okay, in the course of this very discussion, you said that it's going to affect the 2023 elections, which is a few years away. Can you expatiate more on that?
Thank you so much. By law, INEC and the political players in the system are supposed to be at home with the electoral rules, laws, and procedures that will guide the 2023 election. That is one of the reasons, if you will recall, Mr. President in 2018 failed to sign the amendment to the Electoral Act, citing the fact that it was too close to the election and that it was not going to help the electoral body in carrying out its duties. More especially, the political actors were not going to be familiar with the law. So he decided not to introduce new laws that were going to mar or negatively affect the process. This time around, we had agitated for the amendment of this law early enough to enable all the stakeholders to become abreast with it, particularly INEC, to enable INEC prepare its facilities for the conduct of the election come 2023. My brother, INEC cannot wake up today and decide to adopt electoral transmission of votes without putting the proper infrastructure on the ground. The infrastructure needed for this purpose are supposed to be budgeted for, are supposed to be applied, sourced for, are supposed to be installed, are supposed to be test run, and all that works. But today, the National Assembly has brought in some level of incoherence in the system. INEC cannot be sure of what they will do today or what they will do tomorrow. Because they can prepare for a direct transmission while NCC says no, the coverage is not going to be possible. NCC can also approve, go ahead to transmit. The National Assembly, for their selfish interest, says no, we are not approved. In that situation, INEC in itself has been handicapped in the discharge of its duties. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, do you see electronic transmission of results as a panacea, the electoral malpractices which has plagued this country since our independence in 1960? Is it the solution?
Certainly, if you recall, what are the issues? People will go to polling unit, vote, and at the end of the day, when they get to the collection center, it's either they be chased away, or when they go to the final collection center, the results will be changed and you see other results. This e-transmission is a system whereby as the results are being entered at the polling unit, it will be transmitted to both the collection centers or the INEC server and their portals, and the whole world will see it. And let me tell you, the implication of what these people are doing is much. It's even going to affect our direct investment. It's going to affect the foreigners that want to invest in Nigeria, because the electoral system determines how stable the country is politically, and no foreigner would want to invest in a country that is politically unstable. And let me tell you, this morning I heard an APC member on television when they asked him, your own members from Lagos State, are they saying there's no network in Lagos State to transmit results electronically? Why did they go and vote against the e-transmission? He said that that is what somebody asked them to do, that they do what they are directed to do. And I want to say that I'm proud of the minority group in the National Assembly, especially our own distinguished Senator who led the minorities to protest against this obnoxious law. And even in the leader of the minority leader in the House of Representatives, Honorable Ndudi Elumelu, these people have written their names in the good. Because this, when you are representing, you're not representing yourself. It is the aggregate interest of your people. And now look at the outcry. Look at civil society. Look at the political class. Look at the international community. And above all, it was INEC herself that suggested this amendment. And on top of it, they said that we have the capacity. We have the ability. We can do this. We have done it in Edo State. And we have test run it in some houses of assembly election. The operators of the law say we can do it. Now, why are they not making excuses for somebody, for something that somebody say he can do? Are they the INEC? Are they making the laws for themselves? Would they be in National Assembly forever and rig election? Are they sure all of them will be alive in 2023? How can you be making laws for yourself? And who told them they will continue to be the ruling party forever? Laws are made for the development of the society, not for personal gain. Because you may, in fact, the law, they may even be caught up with the law.
Okay, Mr. Poete, members of the National Assembly are concerned about national coverage. And they are saying that if we should go ahead and transmit results electronically in 2023, that 50%, that the votes of 50% of Nigerians may not count. Do you see it as a valid excuse?
Mr. Moderator, that excuse is very absurd, very preposterous, and unreasonable. Let us begin by the fact that INEC, since 2015, they have been conducting their accreditation online through the card readers. You go to the card reader, you present yourself, the card reader notifies you. They have been conducting their registration since 2018 online, all over the Federation of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. No word in Nigeria, no political word in Nigeria has risen in the past to say they don't have the infrastructure for accreditation of voters during the election. No word, no political word, no political unit, no polling booth in the past has risen to say we could not do election because there was no facility to register online our voters. How come at the 11th hour of transmission of results, which INEC itself has run and approved and certified, fit for eventual adoption in the country, how come now Nigerian legislators and National Assembly are now using NCC coverage as an excuse? That excuse is untenable. It is, to say the least, very unwarranted. We are quite aware that even if there is network infrastructural deficit, we could budget sufficient money from now till 2023 to ensure that there is full network coverage in any area where there is a deficit. Let me tell you, my brother, to budget money for billions of naira to monitor social media operators and their languages and their use of actions may not be as much important to Nigerians than a credible, free and fair election would be. Nigeria has the capacity to budget sufficient funds to make sure that our democracy grows from strength to strength. And like you have rightly said, from 1959, one of the bends of Nigerian democracy has been electoral malpractice. And this electoral malpractice is climaxed in result falsification. That issue of result falsification is what takes away the people's mandate from the electoral process. The people want to be sure, they want to maintain that their vote counts. And the only way your vote can count is to ensure that what you voted is what was released. In the last election and in the last electoral tribunal, you discovered that INEC in itself had problems with declaring results through their cyber because there was no law supporting it. And that was why INEC by itself proposed the amendments, because they have made sure that they have passed through the process and they have certified it fit for national adoption. And then they recommended that it would be proper that the system operates with electronic transmission. Even after the National Assembly in their overruling of the system, INEC has come up to say we still have the capacity to transmit results electronically throughout the whole Federation of Nigeria. So you discover that at the end of the day, Nigerians should stand up and ask our so-called representatives of the National Assembly whom they are representing, whether they are representing the people or they are representing themselves. Ordinarily, in a democratic system where we operate representative democracy, the people at the National Assembly are supposed to be representing the people at the grassroots and not just themselves alone.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Chairman, there is no way we can be discussing this very subject without citing an instance of what happened that day in the National Assembly, a senator from Abia State, I'm not going to mention his name, we are not putting him on trial, but he said that he voted against it because there is no network coverage in his community. Do you agree with him?
Yeah, before I go into that, let me just give credence to what my colleague has just said. The National Assembly, or the leadership of National Assembly, they come up to say that this will disenfranchise over 50% of the electorate.
Yes.
Now, where did they get their data from? Is it that they set up a committee? Is there any empirical evidence to show they made analysis or they made a study all over Nigeria, or they invited LCC, or the network operators, they invited MTN, Globe, and Airtel, and they said they don't have coverage over Nigeria? How would they now be the judge over their own case? Who did they invite? Which committee did they set up? Now, coming up to the senator for one of the senatorial districts in Abia State, you will recall what I told you about Lagos State, that this morning on AIT, one of the persons in the studio is an APC member, and they asked him, people from your Lagos State, your senators and your House of Rep member voted that there's no network, therefore the e-transmission would be possible. Even in Lagos State, don't you have a... He said that everybody in Lagos State, we want this bill passing to law. But that these people, that anything they ask them to do somewhere, that is what they do. So it could not also be ruled out from my own distinguished senator that they had a meeting somewhere and they directed them that this is what you will do. And that is what they have done. And they are doing that for selfish reasons. Maybe they don't want to lose their position, or they don't want EFCC to come after them, or they don't want to be victimized. And I read the one platform this morning where it was quoted that the deputy speaker was thanking his colleagues from the north for being together in these two bills, both petroleum industry bill and this bill, and they have achieved their agenda. Now, if that is correct, it means that these people have keyed into somebody's agenda or a zonal agenda, and for them, they are like slaves and they must obey their master, and if they don't obey their master, they may be punished. So that is where and how we have found ourselves.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, still on you. What are the dangers of having a tele-guided National Assembly? What are the dangers in a constitutional democracy?
It is the masses that will suffer, because the masses, this is the time the masses, their voice, their opinion should be heard, and it cannot be heard. So the masses will suffer. The development will be deterred. There won't be because this thing we are talking about, it has a great implication on direct foreign investment. If you watch all these foreign counterparts, they look at development index, they look at your electoral process. If these things are not in order, they won't come, they won't invest. World Bank, European Union, all these development partners, they look at the structure of democracy, the electoral process. If it's not akin or like theirs, they will look at you as we are coming here to waste our money. So it is the masses that will suffer, and the implication is huge. It is unquantifiable.
Okay, Mr. Kwete, a senator from Abia State on the platform of the BADP abstained from voting. Don't you see it as being part of the problem?
Well, thank you so much. In the National Assembly rules, House of Reps member or a senator, even though present, may be entitled to abstain from voting. He has the right to cast his vote. He has the right to refrain from casting. He also has the right to stay away for any reasons. But the truth of the matter is that not such actions ought not to be done at critical moments when there is need to stand up for democracy, when there is need to be counted. You see, most of the senators who deliberately refrained from voting one reason or the other, could be said to have murdered or could be said to have contributed to modern democracy, alongside with those who voted against that principle of electronic transmission of results. It is not an excusable time for a senator to say, I want to refrain from voting, when the national interest is at stake, when our democracy is at stake. Let me tell you, my brother, there is no alternative to democracy. And the ability of a country to guarantee and secure its democracy flows from the electoral process. The moment the electoral process is credible and transparent, an enduring democracy will exist. So for any senator, even though from either state or another state, to have failed to be counted at the appropriate and critical time when the voice of his constituents are supposed to be heard, that person must have contributed directly or indirectly to the murder of democracy in the country.
Okay, thank you very much. At this point, we are going to take a break, and when we come back, the rest of the program continues. This is Issues of the Moment. Stay tuned. Program. This is Issues of the Moment, and on today's edition of our program, we are taking a look at electronic transmission of results, which was passed into law last Thursday by the National Assembly. And I want to let you know that we have students of Living TV Academy who are in the studio watching what we are doing. And at this point, we consider it necessary to give them an opportunity to make a contribution on the issue we are discussing, or ask any question they may consider necessary.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator. I'm Israel O. Let me direct my question to my honorable Embarrassing Chance. Sir, as a senior legal practitioner, do you really think that transmitting or putting 2023 via electronic, does it really, do you think it guarantee a credible and fair election? That is one. And what do you really think that led the National Assembly to vote against it? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Akwete, that question is for you.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The truth of the matter at every point in time is that every political student of Nigerian political history will appreciate the fact that one major bane of Nigerian democracy has always been electoral fraud, or what you call electoral malpractice. We are evolving our democracy with a view to avoiding or reducing to the barest minimum issues that can give rise to such to such continued fraud. One of such fraud that will always take matters to the tribunal after elections has always been electoral result falsification. And it was on the basis of that the recent amendment to the electoral law or electoral act was proposed by the electoral umpire itself. INEC is aware that one of the greatest challenges to its credibility and the conduct of a transparent election is electoral result falsification. And that was why, on its own volition, it proposed the electoral act amendment in order to capture the transmission in the act. The essence of that is to reduce and bar rancor, and bar agitation, bar bickering, bar falsification, bar thuggery, bar doubting, and things like that in the electoral process. So I want to believe, and every Nigerian, every responsible Nigerian, even the National Assembly members themselves, they also agreed that it is necessary to strengthen our democracy and to make it credible. But the only issue they didn't agree with among themselves is that they lack coverage, is that Nigeria lacks coverage to conduct it, and which we have said is an absurd reason. It's a very unreasonable reason. Because no political unit in this country, no political booth in this country, no political word in this country has risen in the past 4 years to say that they have no network to conduct accreditation of their voters online. And none has said that we don't have INEC online register in our booths, in our ballot centers. But today, we have now seen some people using it as an excuse. When you ask me what will be their reason, of course, the reason is very clear: selfishness. Selfishness in the sense that somebody who is desperate to return to the National Assembly, knowing fully well that in his constituency he lacks grassroots, will always want something to give him the capacity to rig the election against the popular will of the people. That's why somebody can tell you, even though you as the student here, you know that a particular part of Abia State, where a particular senator comes from, is really covered by network. Even in his father's house, even in his village, they are really covered by network. With somebody in the north, somebody in Maiduguri, maybe doubting whether what the excuse the senator gave is true. But you are here in Abia State. You know that even as we are talking now, if you put a call to somebody in that village, the person will pick that call and turn it back. But somebody said one day and said there is no network, giving you the impression that he is only interested to protect himself, not in the truth of the matter. And that amounts to selfishness.
Thank you very much. Any other question from the audience? Yes. Tell us your name and your department.
My name is Sean Michael from the Department of Film and Multimedia. My question is, I saw an article this morning regarding the new bill that was passed and how the National Assembly went about it. But one of the reasons I saw was insufficient technology as part of the reasons I saw in that article. And my question is, what does it take for a nation to achieve electronic voting? And what does this article mean that one of the reasons for not having that is insufficient technology?
Okay, PDP chairman, I think you should answer that question. He said, why is it that we cannot transmit from any part of the country? Is it rocket science?
Well, the answer is very clear. When you talk about what does it take to have technology for electronic transfer, you should be asking, what does it have to have service providers like MTN, Glo, and all not work? Now, do we have this service provider that that give internet and the data? Do we have? We have them. And now, have you called them and asked them to what extent can you cover Nigeria? What is the percentage? They are the one that should have this answer. But from my own point of view, I think they have national coverage because INEC themselves said it. We have the capacity. INEC that is empowered to conduct the election, we have the capacity. So why will it be somebody that is seated in the National Assembly be saying that we don't have capacity? And just as you said, what is the reason why, or what is their fear? Their fear is selfishness. That people like you and me, if you're contesting an election with them, you'll be looking for masses to support you, to vote for them, to vote for you. But themselves can come with police and army and chase everybody away and carry ballot boxes and result and go to the center and they declare them winner. That is the difference. And that is what they're afraid of. There's no other thing.
Okay, thank you. Any more questions from the audience?
Thank you. Accurate results we are talking about here means what the voters have voted for. In other words, making sure that the votes count. Making sure that if it is 100% that voted in the election, the result that will be declared will truly show the vote of 100%. That is what we're talking about, accurate results. And of course, you know that the best bet in accuracy is technology. Human beings may make human errors, human mistakes, human delays, and things like that. But the issue of technology, once the infrastructure is installed and the human capital aspect of the training is undertaken, everything is expected to work well. And that's why we are talking about accuracy. Honestly speaking, if there had been electronic voting in place before the 2018 or 2019 election in Nigeria, the issue of who won the election in Imo State, who won the governorship election in Imo State, will have arisen. Today in Imo State, we saw a situation whereby somebody who came first was removed as the governor. The person who came second was not given the position. The person who came third did not give him the position, but the person who came fourth was given the position. And what is the basis of that? Because the person was alleged to have gone to his house and padded the results and things like that. The truth of the matter is that the electronic result would have given at a glance what is the result of the first person, second person, third person, and fourth person, without giving you room to go back to your house to manipulate, adjust, and the front load with your lawyers in the tribunal or thereabouts. But today, that had been the desire of majority of Nigerians, particularly the political actors and the stakeholders in our democracy. Let me tell you, my brother, you know, even before the passage of that bill in the National Assembly, our European Union partners and the other British aid authorities also went to the National Assembly to speak to the leadership to say we are involved in this process. You know how much money the European Union has spent over the years in building up our electoral infrastructure and in making sure that our democracy is sustained. But unfortunately, our Nigerians are always shooting ourselves on the feet. We don't want to be progressive in our mind. We always want to drag ourselves back. And dragging ourselves back simply means that if the result is not transmitted electronically, it will still depend on 1, 2, 3. And that is a crude way of transmitting results. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any more questions?
Let me give another example.
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Chairman.
When banking has not gone electronically, if you go to bank to pay him money, the only thing they will do is just to write your name and the amount you paid, and you go. And if you go, whether they enter it or not, you may not know until such a time. And in those days, I know one bank where people were going, paying him money, and they were writing it on their passbook, but it was not entering into the bank system until a very long time. But now, If you go to bank and pay him money, before you leave the bank, you will see a light. Is that not correct?
Yes.
And that will show you and now assure you that your money has entered into the bank. And if you also make transfer, that is the electronics we're talking about. If not, ordinarily you can pay in your money and go, and tomorrow there will be argument. This is also what we are saying here, that as you're entering the result, it will enter into their server or portal, and they will see it. So there's nobody can snatch it on the road or change it or even say that the result is missing. It has gone and it will go viral. Everybody in the world will see it, and nobody will dispute it.
Okay, thank you very much. Now, Mr. Pulte, let us take a look at what our former INEC chairman, Professor Atahiru Juga, said. He described the action of the National Assembly as senseless and crazy amendment. In fact, according to him, he said National Assembly cannot approve electronic voting system without approving electronic transmission of election results. What is your take? What's your opinion?
Thank you so much. I want to say that Jega was not the only person that has said it. Jega was merely trying to echo the view of the majority of Nigerians who appreciate the electoral law process and electoral management. Now, given the fact that INEC itself is a constitutional creature, an independent body that is not subject to any other authority or voice for the conduct and discharge of its responsibilities, you will discover that it is not fair for the National Assembly to dictate the way and manner INEC will conduct its responsibilities. In the present context, the National Assembly was just trying to give a legislative backing to INEC's proposal. You were just called up to give a legislative backing, just like when your son tells you, "Daddy, I have found a beautiful wife. I want you to bless us so that we can go and cohabit for life." You come back, you bring your wife. The person brings the wife, and you say, "Oh, this your wife is not worthy to be a wife. I have cancelled it." No, but your son will not be happy, and the proposed wife will also be happy. In the context of INEC, INEC in itself was the one that called for a legislative backing. The reason for that is that if you look at the last election and the Supreme Court decisions on that, you discover that the Supreme Court, particularly in the case of Atiku against Buhari, you discover that the Supreme Court was very clear when they said there was no legislative provision to back INEC transmission of results electronically. And that was one of the reasons why Atiku's case failed. Now, INEC now realized that it needs legislative backing. Approach the National Assembly, please give us this approval. That is all INEC needed. So, the National Assembly deliberately murdered sleep in the proposal of INEC. They deliberately murdered democracy in that proposal of INEC. INEC in itself has shown that they are capable of doing it, and they are willing to do it, and they have the infrastructure to do it. So it is out of place for the National Assembly, who have said, "Okay, since you said you have everything, okay, we approve it." It is out of place for them to have returned INEC 10 places backwards, and that is exactly what they have done.
Okay, thank you very much. And I think with that, we have come to the end of today's edition of the program, Issues of the Moment. For the past 1 hour, we have been discussing electronic transmission of election results, which the National Assembly said no, that we are not prepared for it. But it does appear that that is not the mind of Nigerians. I want to thank my two resource persons who spent their time discussing this very topical issue with us this morning on Living TV Academy. I want to thank the Abia State Chairman of the People's Democratic Party, Right Honorable Asifuro Kere. Sir, thank you for coming. Mr. Charles Akwet, I want to thank you also for being part of today's edition of Issues of the Moment.
Thank you so much.
And also students of Living TV Academy, I also want to thank you for your useful questions. I hope that by next week you also be part of this interesting program. God bless you. My name is Chimezie Ozen. Join us next week on another interesting edition of Issues of the Moment. Thanks for watching. Stay out of trouble.